Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Nailing Nonprofit Insurance webinar hosted by Care Providers Insurance. My name is Quinn Tran. I am the director over CPS program. And joining me today is my co-presenter, Senior Business Development Manager, Joe Heineman. We have a great group of agents here with us today, including some familiar names who are currently partners with us. Really good seeing you. Also seeing some new agents joining today. Thank you for making the time to join us. I hope you can take away some things from today's webinar, and that is going to empower you to grow in this space. We're excited to give you some of the great intel about nonprofits and social service market and how CPS can help you build your book in this space. So I want to take a few seconds to go over some quick housekeeping items before we get started. So this webinar is being recorded, and we will be sending out the slides and the recording after the event. If you have any questions during the seminar, please use the questions box. We did allot some time at the end of this webinar for some Q&A, and so we'll do our best to get to all of your questions. If not, we will be reaching out to you afterwards to connect with you. All right, let's get started. So like previously mentioned, my name is Quinn Tran. I oversee the CPS program. A little bit of my background to earn some credibility in this space. I spent almost 20 years in the commercial underwriting industry, spent several years out in the field conducting surveys of various commercial entities, including religious institutions. Also spent a few years as a desk underwriter as well. And that really brought me closer to the operation side of the business. And I had the honor of joining the NSM family just about 18 months ago, overseeing the CPS program. So with that said, I will pass it over to Joe to introduce himself.
Thank you, Quinn, and thank you to everyone on this call, on this webinar today. We really appreciate your time. Like Quinn mentioned, my name is Joe Heineman. I'm the Senior Business Development Manager here at NSM. I'm dedicated to Quinn to help her team and the Care Provider Services program grow in the nonprofit social service vertical. And we look forward to working with each and every one of you on this call, hopefully binding a lot of business and building some long-term success together. Just real quick, a little bit of background about myself. I haven't been in this space as long as Quinn. I'm working on my 7th year in the insurance industry. I have some experience on the underwriting side of things and also on the retail side of things. So before my time here at NSM, I was selling P&C to franchise auto dealerships. So for you guys on the call, you guys and gals on the call, I can relate to you guys very much. I appreciate and respect what you guys do on a daily basis. And I think Quinn, myself, and the team here at NSM and Care Provider Services can equip you guys with the tools to grow a great book of business together. So we do have some swag to give away for the first 25 agents, attendees that registered and who are also on the call right now, or who will be joining on the call if they come in a little bit late. So it's a nice, fall winter vest branded CPS that I'm going to beg Mary Kate for one of those for sure to add to your closet. So Mary Kate on our marketing team, she will organize the list of the winners and then reach out to you guys in regards to sizing and mailing addresses to get you those vests. So again, appreciate your time and your willingness to join this webinar today. So moving on, let's talk about the agenda, what we're going to talk about today. So we'll do an intro to NSM and CPS. Like Quinn says, some of you are familiar with NSM and our brands. I appreciate you guys hopping on, and some of you are brand new, which is fantastic. So we'll go over NSM, our parent company, and then we'll take a deep dive into Care Provider Services. Quinn will go into the marketplace, what we're seeing on our end from our agent partners, from our competition. She'll take a deep dive into the underwriting trends, the claims trends, and then she'll go into how we can help you win, right? We'll talk about our appetite, our growth classes, target areas around the country where we're focused on. And then to round out the webinar, we'll talk about a couple of wins we've had recently working with CPS, how we get appointed, the submission process, and then we'll leave some time for some Q&A at the end. So to start us off, intro to NSM, right? So who is NSM? So NSM started off as a retail agency, right? So our CEO and president, Jeff and Billy McKernan, started this company off as a retail agency here in Conshohocken, Pennsylvania. And over the last 34 years, we have blossomed to a worldwide leader in the specialty insurance marketplace, right? So we have a global footprint with 30 plus of our B2B, B2C programs. We have footprints in the UK and the US, closing in on $2 billion in premium, almost 1,500 employees, and over 1.5 million clients. So, you know, CPS is just one subset of NSM, right? And our vision is to be the leader in the specialty insurance marketplace and to be that solution for our agent partners and more than just a nonprofit social service business. So this slide is a great snapshot of some of our other brands, right? And to just quickly go through kind of from left to right, All Comps, our work comp program, ATP, addiction treatment, behavioral health, Carbon is our healthcare product, Care Provider Services is what we're talking about here today. GIG is D&O and crime for community associations, Hab Pro, habitational property, KBK is towing and garage, PUA is professional liability for architects and engineers. We have our school bus program, Shield is for our contractors, sports and wellness, think gyms, fitness centers, sports facilities. Staffing Lines is a sister program of our comp program focusing on staffing agencies, and then TTI, True Transport Insurer, is for our trucking transportation. So we have a plethora of programs spanning several different niches, and that's the goal at NSM, to be that solution for and to be those experts in these fields. So without further ado, we're going to shift our focus back to CPS, and just to touch on that last slide, if any of those other brands piqued your interest or you're curious about them, how to work with those programs and what they're all about, feel free to reach out to me after this webinar or call me, email me, and I can help guide you to the right path to get in touch with those directors to talk about those programs. But like I said, this webinar is all about nonprofit social services, care provider services. We want to be your dedicated partner in this vertical. So our mission is simple. We want to be the leader provider of robust insurance and risk management in this nonprofit social service vertical. We're the leader in this niche. We believe that wholeheartedly. We'll get into some data later on, but our bind to quote ratios speak for themselves. We compete against all the main players that you guys see in the marketplace, just to name a few: Philadelphia, Church Mutual, Brotherhood Mutual, Selective, Guide One. We see them every day, all day, and we go up against them no problem. But not to get too ahead of the slides, let's go ahead and start with how the organizational structure is at CPS with the leadership team. So moving left to right, Quinn introduced herself at the beginning. So she leads the program, she heads up and is instrumental in the operations and workflow, and also maintaining and developing our carrier relationships. We have 2 underwriting managers, which we'll get into why we have 2, but Kevin Cornell heads up half of our underwriting unit, Aaron Crawford Peterson heads up the other half, and then myself on the end, business development. The purpose of the business development is to be that connection point for our agent partners, right? So I'm on a mission to find new agents, cultivate and build upon our current agents, and then continue to find new opportunities for our underwriters to execute on. So this is a great snapshot of just some of the characteristics of our program. So we have exclusive programs with a primary focus on nonprofit social service business. Exclusive meaning that we hold the pen for both of our A-rated carriers, Arch and Guard. So going back to what I mentioned in the previous slide, 2 underwriting managers, right? So Kevin and Aaron. So Kevin heads up the Guard side of the underwriting team, and Aaron heads up the Arch side of the underwriting team. And we have 2 carriers because Arch and Guard, just depending on the class of business that's submitted to our program, you'll either be on the working with our Arch team or our Guard team. And Quinn will go into our appetite and which falls in which category, right? So our staff knowledge, right? So throughout our team, we have tons of insurance experience and knowledge about insurance in general and specifically about the nonprofit social service vertical. Our product speaks for itself with our coverage forms, our creative underwriting, flexibility, and philosophy, as well as our attentiveness to emerging topics. And on the note of emerging topics and trends, I'm going to pass it back to Quinn, and she'll talk a little bit about what's going on in the social service marketplace.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. Okay, so before we get into the core of CPS, like promised, let's take a few minutes to talk about the current market conditions of social services and nonprofit and the insurance industry altogether in a broader context. All right, so as of 2022, the global social service market was valued at roughly $5 billion. In about 6 years from now, in 2032, believe it or not, it's right around the corner, it is projected to continue to have the stability and growth at a rate of 7%, which is very significant. So the growth is driven by many factors, such as increasing populations, growing aging populations. People are living longer and healthier, thanks to a lot of resources available now, including medicine and new technology. This increased in demand for human services is only going to get higher and higher. The insurance industry, like many other industries, is cyclical, right? There is a soft market where insurance is readily available, lots of options, very competitive pricing. And then there is a hard market where insurance demands are high with limited options, higher pricing, limited markets. And unfortunately, we are in that hard market today. What contributes to this hard market is also the increase in catastrophic events around the world, with high winds, hailstorms, wildfires is happening as we speak here, putting a lot of pressure on the carriers to shell out, a lot of higher costs for claims. So just last year, 2023, the insurers were responsible for over $100 billion in damages from catastrophic events alone, and that is going on a 4th year now. Very significant. If we can go to the next slide. So what does that mean from what trends are we seeing? As a result of all of that, the carriers are needing to adjust some underwriting trends. We're seeing a lot of carriers exiting certain markets, tightening up a lot of underwriting guidelines, increasing deductibles and pricing, and moving minimum premium threshold higher and higher. Others are scaling back some limits in this space, previously offered very limited appetite, as we're seeing, especially in cat zones or states. And then the list goes on, right? So we understand that the renewals are getting tougher and tougher every day. So before we get into some solutions to solve these problems for you, it is important to understand the trends from a claims environment as well. So if we can just go to the next slide for me, please. Okay, so we're seeing a rise in nuclear verdicts and a surge in claims over the last several years. While there's not a direct correlation, there are some trends to address. increase in third-party litigation funding in exchange for settlements. Some claims are higher in values now, higher need for long-term care, very hard to diagnose situations and medical conditions, and then extremely complex to treat. These are all the things that are difficult for insurers to manage through. Inflation is also a costly factor in driving up these claim dollars. And then, as you can see from the blue box to the right there, some property claims in frozen pipe and water backups are trends that we're seeing on the social services market that's driving up the cost as well. Very expensive to replace and rebuild the properties, which some may or may not have the funds readily available for. And then I also want to mention the auto and GL claims are also on the rise with some of the issues there with slip, trip, and fall, and then the collision part on the autos. Okay, so the one thing I do want to pause and take a look at some of the results from some of the trends we're seeing from claims is that as a trusted advisor, have that conversations frequently with your clients. Do they really need to carry high limits, right? So for example, does a family planning center need that provides some free sonograms, health checkups for mothers to be? Do they need to carry 10 million limits or not? Is that really necessary? Or does a school who has buses transporting children and students back and forth, is that something that they need? So just some things to think about, because these nonprofits, some of them we're seeing come across with requesting high limits when the operation doesn't really call for that. And so that's where your expertise will come into play. All right, so now let's talk about, now that we've gone over through the marketplace overview and then the claims trends, let's talk about how we can help you win. Okay, so as Joe mentioned earlier, we only work with A+ rated carriers, and Arch is one of them. And these are some of the classes that we put on Arch paper. Pregnancy Resource Centers, some private schools, charter schools, all types of religious organizations, we will consider that. I do want to call out that for religious organizations, we do require a minimum premium of $15,000. And then for the other A+ rated carrier we work with is GUARD, and these are some of the classes we put on GUARD paper. Now, keep in mind, we do write over 60 different classes in our program. If your client provides some kind of services to the community in some way, it will probably be a fit or something that we could consider. So just let us know, reach out to Joe, reach out to one of us, and we can certainly be more than happy to talk it through with you on the phone. And then the one thing to call out on this class is that the minimum premium for these classes are $2,500. All right, so we do offer a wide range of key coverages in all 50 states, except for the state of Massachusetts. We have extremely competitive rates for these coverages. We do not write standalone policies, so we have to have the GL before we can consider anything else in our program. We can sublimit the professional liability and the SAM coverage in our program as well. It just depends on the class. And then we also offer work comp through, like Joe mentioned, one of the other NSM programs that we work with, All Comp program. Every single class we write in a CPS will be eligible for work comp in our All Comp solution. Okay, so while we can write a lot of classes, I do want to mention that there are just some higher risk exposures that do not fit in our program, which we see also on a daily basis. So I just want to call them out, just take a few seconds to call them out. Traditional daycare centers do not fit in our program. Any public transportation, foster and adoption organizations, we do not write. Just to name a few, and there's a whole host of areas there. Again, if some of these are incidental to the main exposure that we can consider in our program, we can take a look. However, if these are the main exposures for the organization, for the client, we are not able to consider it in our program. Okay. Okay, so this is something that we are very proud of. Joe mentioned earlier, 87% bind to quote ratio, huge amount. Right now we have over 5,000 policies in force and still growing. The average premium depends on the class, and what we can write is about $23,000 per account. We also have very large presence in the states listed below, and then in that little box there are the classes that coincide with what we write a lot of. Joe, is there anything you'd want to add here?
Yeah, for sure. I would just add that second number, right? The bind to quote ratio. I mean, that speaks volumes. We're very proud of that number. I reran the numbers for year to date 24, and it might even be a little up higher than the 87 that you see on this slide. And that's just a testament to our agent partners. It's a testament to our underwriting unit and our carrier partners. Just the program that we have built, that NSM has built over time. I mean, if it's very competitive, and what this means, right, is if you send us something, it fits our wheelhouse, and we're able to get you a product, it's has a very high chance of binding. And we understand that we can't fit everything in our appetite. We're not going to be able to quote everything, but what we can do is continue to educate ourselves on, hey, what are our sweet spots? Where are we good at? What are you seeing in the marketplace? You know, the feedback that we get from our agent partners and from you guys on this call is so important for us to take internally and discuss as an underwriting unit and take back to Arch and Guard to continue to develop our product, our program, to keep this bind to quote ratio at a high level.
Awesome.
Yeah, so this is a heat map of the country. So the states in blue, just based on gross written premium, these are our largest states currently in the book. We have some states in green that are more so target states where we're looking to push the risk profile to these states, to these areas, to diversify the book a little bit. I don't want to say that just because a state's in gray, that means you don't send us business, right? We want to be able to write business in all of these states as well, outside of Massachusetts. But just for reference, right, to kind of peek behind the curtain a little bit, this is kind of the spread of risk right now and where we're targeting to grow in 2025 and beyond. Quinn, did you want to add anything here? Okay.
Good. All right, we can go to the next one. Awesome. Okay, so I have to give kudos to our in-house claims team. The trends mentioned earlier is a testament to, you know, the experience we have in-house between Jay, who is our program claims manager, and then Wayne, who is our B2B claims director, that we have access to. And what I mean by that is they are physically in our office. We can access them directly if there's questions. happens on an account, if there is a new loss on an account, if there are certain questions regarding how it is handled, the status, we easily get access to that information by having both Jay and Wayne's expertise and presence in the office for that reason. Combined over 50 years of experience on both sides. Wayne helps us on a day-to-day basis, keeping our attention alerted to new claims, new CAT claims, increase in reserves, monitoring any kind of CAT events throughout the country and how that impacts the book, and brings our attention to that immediately. Wayne oversees the overall claims trends for all of B2B programs, but he has specifically dedicated some time for CPS, and certainly will bring any trends regarding CPS program to our attention as soon as that comes through. So really want to give kudos to our claims team in-house and want to brag on them a little bit here.
Could I add something, Quinn, just real quick? If we can go back, thank you. So I just want to stress that this is an example of one of our differentiators at CPS. You know, you as an agent, right, and me as an agent formerly, the first step is to fill your pipeline up, right? And then the next step is to close those deals. Okay, what happens when a claim happens? Then it's game on, right? You're testing your carrier partner. Hey, can you help me get this claim done in an efficient amount of time so the insured, you know, feels like they're in a good place, right? And not every program has an in-house claims operation like we do. Our competition doesn't have a claims operation like we do, and we are so grateful for Wayne and Jay and the operation that they have built here to be able to go into the trenches for you guys in claim scenarios and really, you know, provide a lift in those situations. You know, that's where our service really stands out compared to the marketplace. So I wanted to add that in. Just being a former agent, I understand that when claims happen, you know, things can get sticky, you know, emotions get high, and you really lean on your carrier partner in those situations, and we do a great job from a claims aspect. So yeah, like Quinn said, kudos to Wayne and Jay, and for those of you on the call that will work with us, that experience, you know, our claims team, you'll feel the exact same way.
That's a great call out. All right, speaking of claims and ways to minimize some of the claims, there's risk management resources available. As a CPS agent and or client, there are a plethora of different resources for your clients to get access to. The agent can sign up on your own, and then the clients can also have access to a lot of them listed on this page here. I'm not going to go over with them what they are, but they already always being updated by the carrier. All you need is a policy number and an email. You'll be able to sign in, get access to these online courses or tools. Information is available as often as you'd like. I do know that the carriers usually update this as soon as possible, as much as they can, and is an evolving process of enhancing the resources available for clients. We also offer a vendor relationship with Xywave with every single proposal to you as another risk management resource. So, you know, when you're conducting hiring practices, needing some background checks, for example, Xywave is also available for that. Internally, we do meet with the Xywave team on a monthly basis just to check in on what is an area where the client is seeking risk management the most of. How can we do better with providing that resource? And can we hold, half an hour sessions or direct training to the client themselves for that? So I thought that was a major call out I wanted to share with you. It is attached to every single proposal. If you want to hear more about it, more than happy to discuss that with you. But it's just such a great tool available and ready for, some of those nonprofits and social service clients who do not have the resources to have multiple staffing, to implement some of these, and the resources are there from our end.
So let's go ahead and talk about some recent wins, right? Let's go through some examples before we move on to how to partner with us and some Q&A. So this was a before and after school account we actually received from a newer agency. So we established a strong connection and early discussions and executed on one of their first submissions, which is so important when you're trying to cultivate new relationships. And this is what business is all about. This is what our business is all about, right? Connecting with people like yourselves on the call, discussing pipelines, discussing what's up to come, what you're dealing with, how can we be a solution, and then execute on those opportunities that are presented to us. This was a somewhat larger, right? This was a larger CAA located in Mississippi, Community Action Agency. A little bit of background on the actual risk itself. So this was roughly 12 million in property TIV. Auto exposure was about 30 vans, 5 million umbrella. The professional and the SAM coverage had, they have separate dedicated limits with unlimited defense outside of the limits. So the keys to success with these middle market accounts, these larger premium deals, right? So this account was being non-renewed by the incumbent carrier due to losses, right? So there was some losses on the account, meaning that we don't always necessarily just need to see the clean stuff. We're not afraid of hair. However, the insured implemented corrective action to help mitigate losses on future claims, which made us feel more comfortable to proceed on with underwriting, right? So the agent was able to tell us a story to get us to a point where we felt comfortable and said, hey, we understand these losses happened in the past, but XYZ has happened. The insured is willing to implement these changes to prevent these losses from happening in the future, and we were able to secure a deal. We tagged a separate wind hail deductible to help, kind of contain the property wind hail future losses, if any. But this is a sizable account, right? And sometimes as an agent, when you're getting non-renewed from a carrier, you're kind of, maybe you feel like there's nothing else out there, right? So in these situations, it's so important to build that narrative for our underwriting team, tell a story, talk to your insureds, explain what's going on, tell them, hey, there's a possibility with CPS, but we need to do these things, right? So this is a great example of one of those scenarios. The church. So one of our many church wins. We write a ton of this business. We have several of our underwriters are seasoned in the church religious org space. And for those of you on the call that chase this type of business, you know that this marketplace is in a spiral this year. We're seeing on our end an influx of submissions in the church class just due to some carriers pulling out, some carriers just re-underwriting their books from a risk appetite perspective, and they're coming to us looking for a solution, right? And we want to help and be that solution in a hard market. Last win example, IDD home health account. So, smaller account, right? Less than 5,000. So this is a great, these examples, right? It's anywhere from 5,000 to $250,000 in premium, right? So it shows kind of our appetite as far as classes are concerned, and also from a premium perspective, right? We have the ability to write the smaller accounts. We have the appetite to write the middle market, larger premium size accounts. The keys to winning together comes from one specific word, in my opinion, on the slide, which is trust. Being able to trust each other with clear and transparent communication is so important. If we have trust, if we trust each other, the sky's the limit. Now we'll get into how you can work with us and access care provider services.
Can I mention just a couple of things on the church and the IDD, just as an extra caveat to what Joe had already mentioned? For the religious organizations, we consider all types of denominations. We only turn around, we just don't write Catholic religion. But other than that, we can do that. And then a lot of times these churches will have either a private school or an before or after school care. That's something that we can consider though too. Even though traditional daycares is not within our appetite, if it's an incidental exposure to something like this that we can write, we can consider that as well. And we write that all day long. The other part about IDD group homes, so this is specifically for children that we just bound recently. We have, IDD group homes for adults, seniors, all types of population, and they can range, anywhere from 4,000 to six-figure premiums as well. So I just want to call that out. And again, we don't turn anything down, just really above 2,500, upwards of middle-size, mid-size accounts, depends on the exposure. So we'll take this all day long.
Awesome, thanks, Gwen. So working with CPS. So like I said earlier in the presentation, we're constantly looking and identifying new agent partners to work with. Care Provider Services is a closed program, and it's closed for a few important reasons, right? So it lets you know that we're not just quoting everyone's accounts. We're not just quoting everything that comes in the door, right? We want to have strategic partnerships with agent partners that have the ambition to grow in this space, but also have the ambition to grow with us, right? So we have data, and I have calls, quarterly, sometimes monthly, with agent partners to discuss production levels with us, right? So we can keep each other accountable, whether that's from a submission count, a quote count, hit ratios, bind to quote ratios, etc. We want to constantly and consistently be in communication so we can grow together. That's the goal, right? We want the quality submissions. We're not necessarily looking to be a submission dumping ground for people or be a declination source for people to take to other carriers, right? So it's closed for a reason. And if you're not currently appointed on this call and believe that we could build success together, I would like you to reach out to me after this call, and we can have those conversations to possibly get you set up and start working together. So this is best practices for submissions. So for those of you who aren't appointed, we get you appointed. Okay, how do I submit to you guys? And then kind of a refresh for those on the call that already do business with us. These are just best practices as a reminder for submissions. So we do have a general submission inbox, cps-submissions@nsminc.com. That is the best inbox to send submissions to. And we require complete submissions to proceed, right? It just makes the process more efficient. We really don't want to see piecemealed submissions. So all we require is a court apps, 5 years of losses, and supplemental apps. So we would like to see expiring and target premiums, need by dates. New ventures require a resume and a pro forma budget. But the hard requirements to get the ball rolling would be the accords, 5 years of losses, and the supplementals. We have our own version of our supplemental apps. We can start the process by working off of other carrier apps. Just keep in mind that sometimes renewal supplemental apps aren't as detailed as new business subs, so there might be some additional questions from our underwriting department. The ancillary coverages, so when Quinn was going through our package and our coverage offerings, so the D&O, EPL, cyber, right? So we'll act as a wholesaler on those lines. So those won't be on Archer Guard paper. We can provide those coverages for you, but there's an additional app which will be needed for us to go secure those lines. And then, like she said, all comp, we can parlay all comp if you need workers' compensation. And then the last question, kind of in bold at the bottom there, where do we need to be to win the business, right? You know, you send us an opportunity. We're so thankful for the opportunity. We want to know where we need to be to help you win the deal, right? And if you give us that information, we can really tell you very early on, hey, we can get there, we're going to get there, hang tight, or hey, we're probably not going to get there. Here's why. Let's shut it down. Let's talk about the next opportunity, right? That's such an important piece, in my opinion, of the puzzle. And it kind of goes back to when I was talking about trust and clear communication with each other, right? I mean, a quick no sometimes is just as important for you guys than a quote, right? That way we're not wasting your time, you know, our time's not being wasted either, and we can both move on. So now we have some time for some Q&A. Oh, Quinn, did you have anything else to add? I'm sorry.
That's okay. So thanks, Joe. Before we hop into this, can I just add a few bullet points to the best practices for our submission team as well? Thank you. So I do want to mention, you know, we do need at least 30 days lead time to be able to review, give some optional quotes to you guys, you know, do some additional underwriting. Be creative, right? Joe talked about an example with claims earlier. We look to be creative in that scenario, not necessarily turn something down right away, but how do we look for ways to fit in our program, whether it be maybe just a change in deductible, maybe just some other optional coverages, right? So give us that time if you can. And then with the complete submission, the more complete it is, the quicker you'll be able to get the quote to your clients, rather than having us to go back and forth. So that's the reason. So it depends, right? But we ask for that that leeway, and then just kind of be cognizant around the peak seasons of the social services space. And that usually is the middle of the year, and then towards the end and the beginning of the year for that. And the more time you give us, the better the account will be, you know, in a complete package for you to present. The other thing I want to mention is all of our staff either are in transition to be able to look at submissions or have already been highly skilled to be able to look at all submissions that come across. They're checking off what's on the accord, looking at supplementals, understanding the exposures, to be able to give that turnaround of servicing to you quickly so that you can deliver that to your clients. So a lot going on there on this slide, but I think if we just hit that in the beginning, get all our ducks in a row, I think the transition will be just as smooth. So I just wanted to give in that caveat right there.
Great points. Thanks, Quinn. Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, so we have some time for some Q&A. Quinn mentioned at the beginning, there's 2 boxes, but we need you to submit the questions in the question box, not the comment box. So there's a question box. We'll give you guys a little bit of time, maybe 30 seconds, to type something in there. And then we have some questions that we hear often from agents that we'll go ahead and go through, just in case some of you guys are shy and don't want to ask anything, which is okay, right? Some of these questions that we'll go through are very important, and you know, maybe they are the question that you wanted to ask. So we'll give you guys maybe 10 or so more seconds, and we'll see if anything pops up here. And yeah, I'm getting some, Quinn, so hold on. So Quinn, I'll kind of direct some of these to you. So Rick, to answer this, your question, how do I get a quote, right? So we would want to talk first about the appointment process. So I would ask you to get in touch with me after this call. whether that's a phone call or email, or we set up a time to get on a Teams call. Whatever works for you, let's go ahead and talk about the appointment first, and then we can discuss the submission process in more depth and talk about your pipeline. Thank you for the question. Quinn, how do we compare to Nyack and Philadelphia? A little bit of a broad question, didn't specify the class types, just kind of in general, Nyack and Philadelphia. Thanks, Rick, for the question.
Yep, awesome. Yeah, so we see Philadelphia submissions all the time and applications all the time. Depends on the class, depends on the region. We can be very competitive. Philadelphia typically the submissions that come from Philly typically are very large in size. You know, we consider our program to specialize in small to mid-size accounts. And what that means, it can go up to 200,000, 300,000 plus. We see a lot of bulkier sizes from Philly, which we can consider all day long. The other part is Nyack. So Nyack has a very broad range of social services and nonprofit classes that they entertain. Like I mentioned earlier, we said we had about 60 plus or so that we play in that space. We see that all day long. We underwrite in that space. We get to know our clients in that space, and we want to stay in that space. We don't want to write every single social service nonprofit out there just because we don't want to scoop up all of the exposures. We know what we do best is within the 60 classes that was presented to you, and we want to be a very strong player in that space. With that said, I mean, I think we see this all day long, a lot with many other carriers that do come across our desk as well. So again, depends on the class, the region, the underwriting criteria for specific submissions. We are very comfortable going against Nyack and Philly.
Thank you, Quinn. Awesome. Jack, your question, carriers are not writing churches in the 5 boroughs, correct? So remember, our church program is written on Arch paper, and that is correct. So Arch is not considering at this time writing in the 5 boroughs for churches or religious orgs. Thank you for the question. From Josie, I live in South Carolina and I'm licensed only in California, Louisiana, and Alabama. Out of the states mentioned, could I still be of assistance living outside of my residence or resident area? So I believe she can submit business. If we appoint her, she can submit business out of the states that she is licensed in, correct?
Correct. Yep. So depends on the class and where the risk is. In Louisiana, we may or may not be able to consider, but all that is subject to a lot of underwriting criteria. We do have a market in California, Louisiana, and Alabama. The only class that we do not write in Louisiana right now, again, is the church class. But yeah, you can just send your submission directly to the mailbox, and as long as you are a licensed agent in that area, we can consider.
And appointed.
Yep.
Thank you, Josie, for the question. From Kelly, I see that you write in Florida. Property is hard to place on the coast here. Will you write an account if you aren't able to write the property? We often have to place those with E&S surplus lines.
Yeah, again, I'm going to go back to this quite a bit regarding Florida. So for a church program, we cannot consider that right now in Florida. However, for anything else that we can consider on the guard paper, we'll take a look at that. Depends on how close it is to coast, you know, all of the underwriting consideration that goes in with that. There are some things that we can still take in the state of Florida.
Okay.
We just one more thing, sorry, Joe.
Yeah, no, you're good.
We will take a look and consider the casualty lines. However, our stance is not to add just the casualty lines to the book. We want the entire account, as with everything else. You know, if you have a situation, we'll consider that as a case by case basis. But we would like the entire package. If the property is not something that we can consider, we probably will look at something else. So it just really depends.
Thanks, Gwen. Kimberly, thanks for the question. I need some rules on church, please. JGA is a leading agency in multiple states for church. Please contact me after this. There's your phone number. So Kimberly, I will give you a call after this webinar to discuss in more detail about churches, no problem. Thank you for the question. Scott Hodges, can we pull the supplements online? Generally, Scott, generally I just send them to people who need them. Quinn, do we have them online?
Yes, yes, you can pull all of our supplementals online for renewals and new business. If you just go to the NSM website, click under programs and choose CPS, they are all presented for you, and you can download a version and save that to use. The one thing I do want to mention is we will consider competition supplementals as a just to get to know the exposure. However, at binding, we will have to have the full supplemental completed and signed. But to go back to your questions, yes, a copy is available online for each and every single class.
Sweet. Scott, thank you for the question. Patrick, will comp be considered without the GL and other plans? So our all comp program, we talked about CPS being closed. All comp's actually one of our open programs, meaning that you can submit business to Jim Guerra, he's the director, and his team over at all comp without having an appointment previously set. They can quote standalone work comp. So I guess to answer your question, you don't need to submit to CPS to access all comp. You can go to all comp if you just need workers' compensation. And that would be the way to access the work comp program. If you just needed standalone comp, you wouldn't submit to us if you just needed the comp. It would go to their submissions team. I hope I answered that correctly. Amy, good question. Appetite for churches in Texas?
Yes, so we have an appetite for churches in all of the country outside of Texas. So right now we are at capacity for churches, new churches in Texas, and we are looking at renewals right now. However, you know, years down the road, that may be the case again. We'll open up the state of Texas. On one of the maps, on one of the slides there, one of our bigger presence is the state of Texas for churches. For everything else, we will consider in Texas. So, but as of now, our capacity is, we're looking to grow outside of Texas on the church program. Thank you.
Thanks, Quinn. Thanks, Amy. Edward says, who would I contact for risk management materials? Do those live online as well, Quinn?
Yes, they are available on our online under the resource tab. Yep.
Vicky, can you write a homeschool co-op of parents that teach their that teach their own kids for liability?
Yeah, so we can only consider, for the schools program, we can only consider the charter schools, the private schools, or the special needs schools. Homeschooling is not what we want to get into the space of. And again, we would like the entire package, not just the liability only. Hope that helps.
And then, thank you, Quinn. And last one, at least for now, and then we'll shoot off a couple of these that we planted ourselves. But Michael says, can you help with prospecting target accounts? Michael, what I would say to that is, let's you and I hop on a call. Let's talk about your pipeline. talk about the classes that you're chasing, and we can probably identify some that care provider services would want to chase. So I'm happy to get on a call with you, or Teams or Zoom, whatever you want, to help you out as far as prospecting is concerned. No problem. So some other just quick questions that we hear quite often at CPS. Quinn, do you offer any specific active shooter coverage?
We do not have active shooter coverage. It is actually right now excluded on our program. However, we have resources available to help manage and help the insureds learn through how to mitigate situations and how to respond better in those types of situations.
Can we request the sexual abuse molestation for 2 million sublimit versus 1 million if that is what is offered?
If we offer the 1 million abuse sublimit for that class, that is appropriate for that class. Again, we can go up to 1.3. It really just depends on the exposure and the class that is adequate to have the forms to follow that coverage.
We talked about this a little bit, turnaround time on submissions. Quinn touched on, 30 days is what we ask to really digest the risk, digest the exposures, create a game plan on how we want to win the deal, if we can compete, et cetera. So that's what we ask for. Not to say that we can't, turn something hot every now and then, because we can, but generally speaking, we want 30 plus days out for new business submissions. What's CPS's plan for the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, great question. So to be able to continue to grow outside of Texas and diversify our classes through all of the markets available in our program. Appoint really good agency partners, continue to help you grow your book of business in conjunction with our program, and be a trusted advisor for you at all times.
No doubt about it. I don't think we touched on this, but just let's touch real quick on commission schedules, how you guys get paid. So it varies based on line. We'll pay 15 on the package, 10% on the auto umbrella. And then if we secure the ancillary coverages for you, it ranges from 12 to 12.5%. And workers' comp, if all comp gets involved, can vary depending on the carrier that they use. And to parlay into that conversation, Quinn, what's your stance on profit sharing?
Yeah, so that's not something that we would want to start the conversation off with, but I think if you are aggressive and growing in that space, you already have an established book of business that is sizable, and that we can probably have a discussion between you, myself, Joe, and I in terms of what that would look like.
Fantastic. So that wraps up, just with 2 minutes to spare, the Q&A portion. And this last slide is just everyone's contact information, from Quinn to myself, and then our underwriting managers, Kevin and Aaron. Feel free to reach out to us via phone, email, at any point in time, right? We're here for you. Our program is not here without our agent partners, and we want to continue to build success together. That's our mission, that's our goal. So without further ado, that's all I had, Quinn. I, again, just want to thank everyone for being on this call, taking some time out of their day to listen to us talk about care provider services and maybe potentially finding new partners along the way. So just thank you again for everybody hopping on. And Quinn, did you have any last comments?
Oh, you did well. Thank you,
Okay.
everyone. Good seeing you.
Fantastic. We'll talk to, hopefully we'll talk soon. Take care, everybody.